Good afternoon. I'm Joe Reingold. Today is September 8th, 2020, and I'm here interviewing Monica Tanur. Hi, Monica.
Hi.
Tell us, Monica, if you can, or as much as you can, where your grandparents were from, where your parents were from, what they did for a living, and what kind of life they had basically growing up, if you can, whatever you can.
So both sets of grandparents, maternal and fraternal, were from Europe. My grandparents from my mom's side were from Germany and Austria. And my grandparents from my dad's side were from Russia and Poland. My parents were both already born in Mexico City. My grandparents flew the war, were able to leave on my dad's side before the war started, except some of his family did perish during the Holocaust. On my mom's side, my grandfather was at a concentration camp in France, but it was a labor camp, and he was able to leave through Portugal. And from Portugal, he went to the Dominican Republic, from the Dominican Republic to Cuba, where he actually met my grandmother. And then since they had family in Mexico City, and they didn't have visas to the States because they also had a sister in New York, they actually went to Mexico City first, thinking that they were going to get a visa to the United States. And my grandfather was able to get a job with his brother-in-law in Mexico City, so they stayed there. On my dad's side, and my mom was born literally a month after my grandparents arrived to Mexico. Like, my grandmother was very pregnant coming from Cuba, and she was able to make it to Mexico City. Otherwise, I would have said that I'm part Cuban, but we're Mexican. On my dad's side, my grandmother was from Poland, Białystok, actually. She had a brother that was, they had a good income, and they were living, like, Białystok, it was a big city, and they were very educated, and one of her brothers traveled a lot for business, and he had businesses in Mexico. At that time, it was not very common, but he had some businesses, and so he established himself in Mexico for a while, and he was able to bring most of his family, and that was my grandmother, my dad's mom. And she got there when she was about, I'm going to say 17 years old. And my grandfather, my dad's dad, was born in Russia, but his parents traveled all over Europe, and they, from Russia, went to Germany at some point, and then they ended up in Palestine when it was still not Israel. He still had a passport that said Palestine. From there, they went to Brazil. They were a little bit of the errant Jews all over the world. And from Brazil, they went to Mexico. They actually established themselves in Monterrey. But my grandfather went to school to be a dentist, and then moved to Mexico City, where he met my grandmother, and they got married. So on my dad's side, he's an only child. My dad, like I said, was born in Mexico City in 1937. And he, I grew up, became a dentist, and met my mom. My grandparents from my mom's side, where they lived in Mexico City, like when they moved from the war. My mom also was born there in 1947. They met my parents, obviously, when they were a little bit older, and they got married, and they had me and two other girls. So I'm one of three girls. I grew up in Mexico City. We've had a nice life, thank God. I mean, we were always part of the community. We belonged to the Ashkenazi community in Mexico City. We went to Jewish school, all of our, since preschool all the way to high school. I became a dentist too. I right now work at the dental school here, the Texas A&M School of Dentistry. I teach. And it was a very nice, comfortable, well-adjusted life. We belong to the JCC in Mexico City. Like I said, we were active in the community. Life in Mexico is very interesting as far as the Jewish communities. They're very divided, or they used to be. Now they're a little bit closer so that they can promote more marriage within communities. But the Ashkenazi, the Sephardic, and what they call the Middle Eastern or Arab communities were separated. So I went to a school where it was Ashkenazi mostly, and I learned Yiddish, Hebrew, obviously Spanish, that's first language, and English. So growing up, I spoke to my grandparents in Yiddish, even though they were very fluent in Spanish. They were, they're good with adjusting to the city and life in Mexico. They were very Mexican, very proud of their Jewish heritage, but very consider themselves Mexican. But that's more or less what my life was growing up, like always within the Jewish community, and, very adjusted, very involved, lots of friends. The school that I went was first a little bit religious, and then it was more secular for high school.
Can you think of something very memorable that you did in those growing up years?
Well, life definitely centered very much Friday nights around my grandparents' Shabbat dinner. It was always known that we were not able to do or go out Friday nights because Friday nights were always for Shabbat. I mean, there was no week that we didn't do Shabbat dinner. My grandparents actually on my dad's side were religious. They were more Orthodox. They were Shomer Shabbat. So it was always going to Shabbat to their house. I grew up not with a lot of cousins because, like I said, my dad was an only child and my mom only had a sister, but very close. So we were close to my cousins, very close to my grandparents on both sides, very involved. Like family life was very much a part of what we would do every week. Like, we knew Friday nights with a set of grandparents. Saturday lunch for Shabbat lunch was with another set of grandparents. And it was not an option of missing it, like socially, like everything can happen after that, but not so memorable in the sense that that's what it was. Obviously, those, that creates a life around family and Judaism in that sense. And, that's the way it was in our family.
It sounds wonderful. What family do you still have in Mexico right now?
So right now I have both set of parents, my mom and my dad, and my two sisters with their, husbands and my nephews and nieces. And of course, from my husband's side, we still have also. But as far as my direct family, I have my mom and dad and my two sisters.
Okay. So as far as your decision is concerned, how and when and why did you make the decision to leave Mexico?
So my husband and I got married in 1990. We came here to pursue a graduate program in both areas of dentistry. My husband is a periodontist and I'm a pediatric dentist. And my husband was offered a position here in the residency. So we moved here just when we got as newlyweds. So that was 1990. 1992, we went back to Mexico and started our lives there. Our first daughter was born in 1993. Our second daughter was born in 1995. In 1996, they called my husband to offer him a position as a full-time faculty at the school. At that time, it was still called Baylor. And Mexico was going through a really bad turmoil as far as financially, a little bit of insecurity, but it was mostly safety as far as, like personal safety, kidnappings and violence. And even though we always knew people that had been affected, us personally had never been, but then we did have this offer of, an institution offering us a visa and the option of my husband get his boards and for him to eventually open a practice, which is what happened. So in 1996, we decided that we were going to take the offer and moved here to the United States. 1996, and then our third daughter was born here, but not until 2000. So she's the only one who's born here in the States. The other two were born in Mexico City.
Okay. When you made the decision to leave, what was your family's reaction?
It was hard. I mean,
yeah. That's okay. That's all right.
I mean, we understood that it was
did your
better.
husband, well, let me put it this way. Did your husband consider any other place, or was it Dallas or not? No.
The truth is that in my family particular and back then, nobody really grew up thinking that we were going to move. That's something that's very much into the Jewish community in Mexico. You know, like you always grow up with your, you know, you live there, you meet, like if your significant other is from Mexico City, most of the time you stay there, and you don't really think of leaving. The fact that we had this opportunity in the school, like we really didn't look for it, which is what was interesting. So after really putting all the cons and pros, we were just starting. My husband was just starting his practice, so there wasn't that much of a financial situation, you know, keeping us in Mexico. I think that if we would have had a practice that was already, you know, many years settled, it would have been harder because it takes a while for a dental practice to be built on. But at that time, we were only working, you know, I was working with my dad in his office, and my husband was opening his own practice, but it was still, you know, beginning. And we just got this offer. Like I said, we were not looking for it. We really were not looking into moving from, but this opportunity came, and it happened that it just worked for us. You know, it was definitely a way out in the sense that the physical situation where we were living was not ideal. And we thought that this was going to be a good future for us and our girls.
Did you come here sight unseen and find a house and all that, or had you come before, or did you come prior to accepting the offer?
So what happened is, because Eddie and I, my husband and I, came here to study for 2 years from 90 to 1992, we knew the city. We were not really familiar very much with, you know, like life as married with kids. But when we moved back in 1996, when we decided that we were going to come back, we already had some friends that ended up guiding us as far as the schools where we wanted to put our kids and the area where we wanted to live. And that was a lot of, you know, that helped a lot. But we were familiar with Dallas particularly. We were already fluent with English, and you know, we felt very comfortable. And I do want to say that one of the reasons that we probably didn't have such an issue being that we were moving is that we were close to Mexico City. Like we really thought that at the end of the day, going back, it's not the same moving somewhere far away where tickets, you know, can be very expensive or would take you longer to travel. Mexico seems to be close, so it was kind of like, okay, at the end of the day, we're not that far away. We're only like a 2.5-hour ride back, you know, home if we needed to go or if we wanted to go. So yeah, that, you know, that's why Dallas was a good option, besides the fact that obviously they offered us this job, well, my husband, but yeah.
Okay. Think back for a minute. Even though you knew Dallas a bit before, what was it like adjusting, like you say, marriage and then the kids coming, and what was it really like for you, life in Dallas in the early years?
So at the beginning, it was a little bit hard. I mean, not having family here was a little bit tough. Financially, I wouldn't say that we were struggling, but it was definitely a change to the fact that our girls went to Solomon Schechter, that later became Living Academy, and tuition was expensive. But for Eddie and I, Jewish school was a must. We grew up that way, and we really needed to, we wanted to keep that in our family. It was hard at the beginning, but you know, especially because we didn't have the family, but we made friends. I might say that most of the friends that we made were more or less of the same situation that we did. And the school was detrimental for us to socially be able to be okay. Most of the families that we met had kids the same age as our girls. And we felt very okay as far as, you know, the social scene. Financially, it took us a while because, like I said, we didn't buy a house right away. We were renting. And because we knew that obviously the school was important, and, you know, we wanted to make sure that our girls did go to Solomon Schechter. Even though we didn't grow up Orthodox, we really wanted that. And I think it was a good decision. Obviously, now looking it back, it was a sacrifice, but it was worth it. And then our girls went to Yavne afterwards, the 3 of them. So, I mean, it's an adjustment. It's an adjustment, you know, as a difference of, you know, Mexican life. And we tried to keep our lives very similar to what we had before. Like, you know, we cooked Mexican food, and we always spoke to our girls in Spanish. our three girls are bilingual, well, trilingual if you count the Hebrew, but they have evolved really nicely with their Mexican culture or Spanish. And that was very important for us. It was very important. Plus, you know, it was always a good connection with the family in Mexico. I had help. I did have a housekeeper, that's something very Mexican. I did have a lady that was able to help me, and did make things a little bit easier on me in the fact that I was able to go to work and my girls did not have to go to daycare or have to stay after care. I have this lady that lived with us sometimes, and she was very nice. And that did make a little bit of a difference. I might say, being that both my husband and I were from Mexico, it did make sense, you know, to hire somebody to help us. That's very much into the Mexican culture, that it was not, you know, like a big deal that if we have somebody to help us.
You covered a lot of what I was going to ask you, but let me ask you this. You didn't say how you met your husband. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit of how I met my husband, which is also a very kind of like a cute story. So when we were done in middle school in Mexico, we took a trip to Israel. Like, he was in a Jewish school, I was in another Jewish school. We were not in the same Jewish school. And we met in this trip. It was like a youth group type of trip. I was 14, he was 15. And he actually he had like a diary, like he kept, or a journal. And he wrote that he met this girl, and her name is Monica, and that he really liked her. This is when we were 14 and 15. He actually wrote me like a little, when I left like a day early because I had family. So I left like a day early before the flight, everybody else. And he wrote me like a very nice poem that I still have. I didn't know back then that I was going to keep it. You know, saying that it was very nice that we met, and, you know, like, I don't know, just like very nice in the moment. We ended up going to different high schools, so we really didn't socialize that much, you know, like those 3 years in Mexico. High school is for 3 years. And then as we started dental school, we kind of like just encountered ourselves again, and we started dating in our second year of dental school. So yeah, so I guess it was kind of like meant to be.
Shared.
Yeah,
it was shared. Okay, that's wonderful. When you were here in Dallas, newly here, how did you go about finding a job? Your husband already had obviously his lined up. So how did you find it to be in Dallas? Were people welcoming? Was it easy to find a job?
So this is the thing. My husband had a working visa that was actually sponsored by Baylor, but I did not have a visa to work. So what happened is, once we were able to apply for a green card, which was, I think, about 3 years into having a working visa, we were able to apply for a green card. I was able to get a working visa myself. Well, the whole, they were doing all that, you know, like the whole applying. I did get a visa first to work. So my first year of work, I worked as an assistant teacher at Levine Academy in the preschool, in the force. I was just an assistant teacher. And the next year, they offered me a job at Baylor, which is what I've been working since. But I already had like my, you know, the green card, and I was allowed to work. And they, you know, they didn't have to sponsor me, but I do work on their umbrella, like their dental field. And I've been teaching there since I was pregnant with my third girl. So that's going to be almost 21 years. So I've been working there. So the whole system was done through sponsorship. So first they called us back. They sponsored my husband. And then through the green card, I was able to get a permit to work.
Okay. So what kind of things have you been involved in besides the girls in Jewish day school? Have you and your husband been involved in as far as the Jewish community and or the secular community or your professional community?
So as far as the community, so for our girls in Jewish schools, I was always part of the boards, both at Levine and Yavne Academy. I was a member of their boards for many years, like first at Levine and then Yavne. And then for Yavne, I was head of the PTO for about 3 years or 2 years. Secularly, we both belong to dental societies, like the Hispanic Dental Society, the Southwest Dental Society, which is based here in Dallas. We both belong to the Alpha Omega Dental Society, which is a Jewish dental society. We go to fraternity, sorry. We go to meetings there. We used to go once a month. Now, of course, we haven't, but we are both active in that. Different, like as far as us working for that community, we both belong to Plano, to Chabad Plano. And yeah, that's more or less what we do.
Do you see anybody in your family, anybody else in your immediate family coming here, either moving here or extended visit here at all? I'm sure they have managed to come here, maybe up and back, but.
Oh, they come and visit a lot, and we go to Florida a lot because that's where we used to, vacation, since I was little. My parents do have a place in Florida, so we go there for the summers and we'll go there for Passover. I don't think that it's in their plans to move. They all have jobs. It's not really easy. For a while, maybe one of my sisters would have thought about it, but it wasn't really a plan that got concreted, or, that actually got, I guess, it did not happen. And at this point, they're all established themselves financially. They're doing well. Their kids are already grown up. My sister has 2 daughters that are married already. So no, we don't think from either one of our sides that would ever think to move.
Okay. You and your husband have been here for quite a while now. Not that you're natives, but almost. And so Dallasites. But just tell us, from the beginning until now, your long journey, how has Dallas changed? How have you seen it change?
Well, we live in Plano, and when we moved here, Plano was kind of like you thought you were going to Oklahoma. So that definitely has changed a lot. Like the way that Plano has developed, it's been, like amazing in the sense that, restaurants and nightlife, and obviously residentially it's grown. Dallas, I think, has evolved a lot. It's like all downtown, the museums. I think it's great. I mean, it's a great place to be. Jewishly, I keep kosher, and I can tell that from when we moved, it was hard to get kosher meat just the way it is right now. We used to go to Linksman and get the frozen meat. We never got any fresh meat. So clearly has evolved big time. Now, whenever it's time to go and buy anything, I can just go to my Trader Joe's, which is so convenient. It's around the corner. Never used to be like that. So I think it has evolved. It has good communities. We've seen all these communities grown. So yeah, it has grown for the best.
Good. And tell us, what is your family, your children involved in these days?
So that's another sore subject when we talk about moving to the States, because like we said before, nobody really in Mexico grows up thinking that their kids are going to go away. Our kids grew up American, obviously, because they came here when they were little. So they always had this idea that when it was time to go to college, that they were going to move away. So that's been a little bit hard for us, because culturally, I think, we're not used to letting the girls go so early, but, they're doing really well. We have our oldest, Michelle, lives in New York, went to school in Austin, and then took a master's in New York in forensic psychology, and she works right now in the psychology field. She's a counselor in a high school in the Bronx. She's very happy, but she lives in New York. Then our second daughter went to school in DC, and that's where she stayed. She has a job at a PR firm. Also, she's doing really well. And then the third one is right now at UT Austin. She's only 20, so we don't know what she's going to do with her future yet, or where she's going to end up. But we're empty nesters. So they're very well adjusted. All of them belong a little bit to BBYO, except the third one was very involved with BBYO. She was regional Messiah, and she was very involved with, which was great. Like I said, the 3 of them went to Yavne. we grew up very traditional, even though we're not Shomer Shabbat, but you know, we tried to have Shabbat every Friday night, and we always had it with friends, and that was good. And you know, their lives all over where it has taken them, they're doing well. So
wonderful. Along with that, what traditions do you see your children continuing that they grew up with? Do you think? Can you envision that?
well, definitely, our girls love to go on vacation to Mexico and with the family. I think at this point, I think they understand that when we can, they look forward to that. They try to arrange whatever vacation time they have to spend it with the family, whether it's only with us or with our families in Mexico, which is great. They're you know, they have, so far I might say, Jewish homes, in the fact that they try to do Shabbat whenever they can. I wouldn't say that they do it every week, but they tend to have, you know, like that feeling towards, you know, Israel. They all went on birthright. Although they've been to Israel before, they had a very nice Jewish upbringing that we're hoping they're going to keep, you know, like in their future. They have boyfriends. They're not married yet. So God willing, you know, they'll decide to get married soon. Don't tell them I said that. Please edit that. I don't want it to say that I'm saying that they have to get married now, but I want them to. We want grandkids to be young grandparents, but they're doing well. I might say that the fact that they understand that vacation is like family time, I think they look forward to that. They love that Mexican part of them that they have. They're very proud. They call themselves, you know, like Mexican American in the sense, and like they have a whole mixture of like Jewish, Mexican, American. So yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. I have a couple of questions that I call my challenge questions. Really, they're not so easy, but think about this for a minute. The first one is, can you think of anybody that you would consider your role model in life?
I have my grandmother from my dad's side. I didn't get to know my grandmother from my mom's side. She passed away young, but my grandmother was in my life for many, many, many years. She lived till she was 96 years old. And she was always she had a hard life at the beginning, you know, when she moved and, you know, obviously being away from where she was, but she made a very good family. She worked for the community a lot. People love her. Very smart woman. I might say that she had a very, you know, moral, good life, smart woman. I could say that she can probably one of my role models.
Beautiful. Okay. And the other thing is, besides your family today, I should say, what are you the most proud of, you yourself?
Well, you got it, a little bit of like my family.
I know.
I think, you know what, I think I'm very proud of the way that my husband and I know that we don't, I mean, I'm not saying that my girl's proud of that, but I think my husband and I have made a very nice living for our girls. And I'm not talking financially. I'm talking about the way that I think that the way that our girls see us as a couple. I think that's something that it's very proud. You know, raising girls, it's hard right now as it is raising boys. And it's important for them to just see whatever they should expect in life a little bit on a partner. And I think I'm proud of that. I mean, that would obviously take on my husband. As far as me personally, I've made good friends here. And that has been a good support for us. I have a good job. And, you know, I think that sometimes it's hard to put yourself in a situation, you know, when you think that you're far away from your family or where the way you grew up. But life has been good for us here. And I think our girls grew up knowing that, you know, and when they see that the relationship that we have and what made as far as socially and how we establish ourselves, I think that's something that will make me very proud of.
Okay. Well, I'm wrapping up with you. I thank you so much, Monica. That was a wonderful interview. Do you think your husband's ready?